This week, the Supreme Court of the United States upheld a lower court order to halt President Donald Trump's freeze on $2 billion that was earmarked to be paid to foreign entities and projects by United States Agency for International Development, also known as USAID. In a 5-4 decision, Coney Barrett and John Roberts teamed up with the 3 liberal justices to tie Trump's hands from executing the will of the people who voted for him. It is important to note that the president is the only person who serves at the will of all the American people and has been mandated to do exactly what he has done. The funds in question have been exposed by Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency as being rife with fraud, waste, and abuse. A lower court, driven by the liberals, initiated the hold on Trump's executive order. MAGA pundits fully expected Scotus to overrule that court and allow the president to fulfill his constitutional role. This did not happen. In this clip, Glen Beck provides an outstanding analysis of this decision. We will return at the end of this clip with final thoughts about where we go from here.
Dive into the Supreme Court decision on restoring USA funding. I think this is grotesque, but it's a conversation that we need to have. And it doesn't end with, we're not going to listen to the Supreme Court. It leads right to, please, Donald Trump, make sure you're finding a Scalia as our next Supreme Court justice if you get to appoint one. The question is, who really holds the reins of our government? Yesterday, the Supreme Court ruling came out, and they really didn't, because it was a quick turnaround, it's not a full reading of what everybody was saying. And I want to know exactly how they made this decision. But we saw Justice Coney Barrett side with John Roberts and the court's liberal wing. What a surprise there. And it was against the Trump's administration to push to freeze $2 billion. $2 billion. You and everyone you know, maybe everyone you've ever met, everybody that lives in the same town with you, will never pay $2 billion in income tax. So $2 billion in foreign aid. And the dissent came from conservative justices like Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh. Now, this was, Scalia talked a lot about this. And let me break it down in this way. The federal government is like a giant kitchen. Congress is the head chef, okay? They write the recipes and then order all of the raw ingredients, laws, and the budgets. Got it? The president is the kitchen and manager of the chef and all of the kitchen. He decides, how do we execute this? How do we do this? And the Supreme Court is really the food inspector who's called in when there's, worry about food poisoning, botulism, something really bad that the restaurant was never supposed to put out. That's what it's supposed to be. In this case, President Trump, on his first day back in office, he signed an executive order to freeze $2 billion in USA funding. Okay, why? Because he suspects deep corruption. So the money Congress had already earmarked for foreign aid, which is their job, it gets blown out of the water. Now, his team said, let's look for waste, fraud, and abuse. Now, that comes right from his campaign promises. That's what he was elected to do. He was very clear about DOGE. The nonprofit groups sued, and a lower court judge ordered the funds to be unblocked. And in the Supreme Court yesterday, 5-4 split, they upheld that order. Now, what? The ruling said, basically, you can't just hit pause on Congress, okay? They've come up with a recipe. They've ordered all of the goods unless the law explicitly lets you, the president. Now, I think it does, but... And really, so does Thomas and Alito and Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. They said, he's the administrator. He's the one. He's the one who said, no, wait. I think there may be some sort of botulism in some of these ingredients. I'm not putting them into the food. The administrator, does he have leeway to manage the funds and root out corruption? Especially since the executive branch is tasked with, quote, faithfully executing the laws. Faithfully executing the laws. Amy Coney Barrett, Trump appointee from last time, surprised a lot of people, me not so much. She didn't write a separate opinion here, but her vote suggests a real narrow view of executive power that I don't think the founders ever really saw this as. Scalia, were he alive, might have dissented and gone the way of Alito and Gorsuch because he always railed against judicial overreach. There was a court case back in the 80s, Morrison versus Olson. He warned letting courts micromanage executive discretion, I'm quoting, enfeebles the president's constitutional role. What does that mean? The president oversees his domain. Congress oversees their domain. And there can't be any judicial meddling in this unless the Constitution or Congress clearly says so. And the cash is yours. Do you want it to go to anti-American or changing mice, one sex to the other? Do you want that? Yes.
All they have to do is, instead of doing this BS thing they're doing, which is like, here's a big pile of money and we want generally this thing to happen, they can just write in the laws that they pass exactly where the money needs to go and when it needs to go there. That is complete. They have the power. The Congress has all of this ability.
As according to the Constitution. But the progressives have changed all of that. They passed in 1946 the Administrative Procedure Act. I don't know what that is. You ever heard of that? Really super important. It creates a fourth branch of government that's neither executive or legislative. It's just kind of out there in limbo. Why? Because it dilutes the power of the president and it takes Congress out of the hot seat. They don't want to be blamed by you for something. Is anyone taking responsibility for the cash that we know is being funneled into, nefarious purposes? Nobody in Congress is being held responsible for it. Why? Because they did exactly what Stu said. We're just giving it to that agency. I don't have anything to say about the agency. I said we should send it over there because I thought they were doing this. And then if the president doesn't have the power to say, wait a minute, you're not spending that money, then you can't even blame him. Who do you blame? Who's responsible for earmarking that money to go to those specific groups? Somebody you've never met, somebody whose name you've never seen, somebody who will never go to jail or be held responsible, even if they're funneling it to nefarious camps. That's what this is really all about. And when the people truly understand that, and realize there is no check on the judicial branch. The judicial branch is supposed to just make the decisions. No, that's not in the Constitution. But instead, we've changed all of these things through law those laws are unconstitutional because they destroy the checks and balances of the three branches. But what are we going to do? We're going to be like the Democrats, just do it anyway. Nope. We say to the President of the United States right now, you let the DOJ, if they force you to spend this money, you sick the DOJ on them and you track every dollar. You find anyone who is wasting our money, anybody who is doing anything nefarious, and you march them out in an orange jumpsuit in shackles and you throw their ass in jail.
Glen Beck is right. The Department of Justice will play a pivotal role in cleaning up the mess that the Obama and Biden administrations have left us. President Trump is wasting no time. We must keep the pressure on and take every inch of ground we can to restore the republic. This entrenchment of the deep state didn't happen overnight, and it will take a persistent, focused effort on the part of the MAGA movement to root out the corruption. Rome wasn't built in a day, but one thing is for sure. The great American comeback is in full swing, and MAGA is rising.